So we're going to stop, take a break here. Yeah, we can do that. Well, you know what? That's going to get dangerous. I just know I'm going to start with feedback and all sorts of stuff. We're going to take a break from treatment and talk a little bit about how we can use bioelectronic medicine for detection. So neuromodulation, or what am I saying? Bioelectronic medicine covers a whole bunch of different areas. And what NeuroGeneces is doing is using EEG readings to look at your brain health. We can go to the next slide. 2 in 3 Americans are worried about developing dementia. That's a huge number, right? We're looking at 220 million Americans, and it's the number one concern of anybody over the age of 55. So we're really dealing with a huge area. And it's no surprise that $120 billion is spent every year trying to deal with treatments for Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. The problem that we're having, next slide, is that the real issue here is early detection. What you're seeing here is that standard MoCA test where you go into the doctor and they tell you to remember 3 words and draw a clock and do a couple of things. That test does not pick up symptoms until you are pretty progressed in the disease state. And one of the things we're trying to do is figure out a way to detect things earlier. We can go to the next slide. The ability to impact the progression of brain decline has to do with how early to detect it. And right now, the current treatments, they can't reverse anything. They're looking at trying to lessen the trajectory. And so what we need to do is catch it at a point where we can make an impact on that trajectory. So we've got a couple of things to click through here. I apologize. But what we have here is a typical AD patient. We're not going to pick up those symptoms on a MoCA test until they're around 65 years old. And before that, go ahead and click like 4 times. Right before that, we're starting to get our cognitive symptoms. You can detect it in the blood a little bit before that. They might show up some ocular symptoms prior to that. And then one more click. What we're looking at NeuroGeneces is changes in brain function up to 2 decades before they have those symptoms. And so what are we talking about when we say changes in brain function? One more click. The sleep electrophysiology is where we're focused. You can see what's happening with your neuronal signaling at a very early stage. And one of the areas we really like to focus on is in that deep non-REM sleep, your slow wave sleep. And those are bursts in your sleep cycle that happen tons when you're young. And they have really deep amplitude of those waves. And as you age, those drop off pretty significantly. So you can start to map someone's brain age, if you will, pretty easily as you move through that. And we can detect by looking at that abnormalities in that decline pretty early on. So what our machine learning algorithm does is it not only identifies that brain age, but we're using functional engineering to really have details on a whole bunch of different aspects of your brain health and sleep health. You know, we can do what a normal sleep apnea take-home test does and a whole bunch of other brain measurements as well. And I'm going to look here to make sure that I'm saying everything right, because we're going to get into some results on how we know our own algorithm works. What we did was we can go ahead and click. We took a big database of EEG readings and modeled the brain age. And then we did, and this is where I had to write stuff down, a 10-fold cross-validation based on another 755 PSG readings. And that's how we got our brain age. And then we went and took it a step further with a clinical trial of 36 patients to see how our brain headband EEG is doing in terms of measurements. So you can see the results right there. And I should note that our algorithm also has automated a part of the mapping process that's usually done by a clinician in the sleep lab where they identify the different stages of sleep. And so we have a deep learning model that is over 85% accurate, I believe, having to do with the sleep stages as well. And that's incorporated into the technology. So what we're doing here is demonstrating an unprecedented insight into brain functionality and the ability to start detecting that decline up to 2 decades earlier, which is going to allow clinicians to work with their patients and really come up with preventative mechanisms that we can track and try and make an impact before it's too late. To that end, we're going to be starting with the concierge medicine market and functional medicine. This is an area where doctors are specifically interested in preventative medicine. They have a patient population that's willing to pay for the diagnostics on a regular basis. We have established a clinician advisory board to support this and validate our go-to-market model here. It's 25 plus and growing. They have really been giving us great insights and validating what we're trying to attempt here. And they're going to be helping us as we launch a commercial pilot to validate our commercial plan on this by the end of the year. They're pretty excited about it. We're oversubscribed for the pilot at this point. We can't support this many clinicians to try and do the pilot. But they're all very excited to see what we can get out of this and start adding to our database. The more we get data input into our database, the more refined we can make our report and make it more robust as we go forward. So this is led by a team that I'm really excited to be a part of. A lot of great experience, Google and Facebook working on AI, ML, medical device, scaling, sales. I think we're going to be tracking really well soon, but we are also going to be kicking off a raise soon. We're raising $3 million this summer. Just gearing up to have everything in our due diligence room by the time we start reaching out to people. I think we have, I skipped one. Let's go forward one and I'll go back. So we'll be using those funds to finish the industrial design on a version 2 product and help with that commercial pilot launch as we move forward towards medical device indications and some clinical work around that. So we can go back to the team or to the investment. We've already been supported by Esther Dyson and Techstars, plus significantly invested in with our own founding team and a lot of non-dilutive funding with that as well. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. So, we are looking to be the new gold standard in measuring brain health and trying to let people understand that there is a way that we can make an impact early on, and dementia is not something that you have to be scared about, but it's something that we can actually be proactive about. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Great presentation. Any questions? If not, I have Glenn has a question.
Don't hit me too hard with the science questions either, because I am the chief commercialization officer. Please remember that.
I have the opposite. Forecast. Do you have a forecast model at all?
Yes, we do. Actually, we expect to be making revenue next year and hitting about 90 million in 5 years. We can give you more details offline on that.
Yeah. So I want to follow up on that. So you think 90 million primarily from concierge medical, or are you thinking in terms of reimbursement within 5 years?
This is without tapping into the reimbursement market.
So just from the concierge medical community.
So concierge and then growing it into general practice.
But still self-pay.
Still self-pay. Yeah. It's $450 to take it home and do the test the first time. And then it's reduced as you move on from that. For the majority of people, what they're going to find out is that your forgetfulness is a normal amount of forgetfulness and you don't have to stress about it. But for some people, like my best friend whose grandmother just passed away with Alzheimer's, her mom is already showing symptoms. She and her sisters are very concerned and they want to track it quarterly and see how different things might impact that.
Okay. And can you say a little bit more about the concierge medical market? Because honestly, you're the first firm I've heard of that's specifically looking at that. I mean, obviously there's companies who have wellness products and looking at self-pay, but what have you've obviously studied this a little bit because you're commercialization. What do you know about this clinician community? What do you know about their patients? And why aren't more early stage neuromodulation companies looking to this as an early source of funding?
Yeah, I mean, I think they maybe aren't early source of funding, but they're a great entry market for diagnostic type of tools.
I meant that euphemistically.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that the doctors themselves are, but as an early source of revenue, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a rapidly growing area of general practice, and also with different specialties. You see it popping up a lot in metropolitan areas like New York, California, South Florida is starting to see a big boom with it. Gainesville, Florida, where I live, there's maybe 2 concierge physicians in the entire area, but it is growing a lot because it allows them the flexibility to not be so dependent on the reimbursement world and the healthcare world. And so what they do is they have a fee to be part of their practice, and they take on fewer patients. And those patients are usually slightly higher income and more focused on wellness and preventative medicine. And so they really focus on that functional medicine and the connections where they can get you into the specialists you need to see moving forward. And it has become very popular in the last decade, and it is growing rapidly. And one of the great things about it, additionally, is that there are very strong networks that support concierge physicians, and they actually put out guidance on what to do in your annual reviews. And so we're hoping to partner with a couple of those groups as well to get our product out to these different clinicians.
Okay. And then my last question has to do with new interventions for Alzheimer's. Jeremy and I were at a meeting in Dana Point last month where they did a whole session on Alzheimer's disease, not from a pharmaceutical standpoint. Of course, many of us know the story of the failed drug trials for Alzheimer's, but really looking at new med tech innovations, including non-invasive products. And I'm wondering if you see opportunities to partner with any of these firms that are looking at different approaches to treating Alzheimer's as kind of a way to close the loop, if you will.
Absolutely. I mean, I think obviously our easiest, earliest exit opportunity is for a company that's trying to drive earlier sales of some treatment, right? So that's an easy win there. But a lot of you might not realize that NeuroGeneces has had a bit of a pivot. We started out with a treatment, and that is still in the works, but it's a little further out clinically. But what we realized is that first stage of identifying those bursts of activity during sleep for the stimulation were also very valuable just on a diagnostic side as well. And so that is deep in our pipeline.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Blythe? Anyone on Zoom with a question? No. All right. Well, thank you very much, Blythe.
Thanks, guys.